between the quiet of night, where the sky unfolds like a soft black silk, there rests a pale shimmer that has whispered to humanity about a vastness beyond imagination. That is Andromeda, a galaxy carrying the promise of widening our sight and dissolving the boundaries we thought we knew. Tonight, you and I drift with the universe's breath, feeling its gentle beauty like an ancient poem written in light. If this opening touches you, leave a quiet like, a soft subscribe, and walk with me a little further. And then, what is Andromeda? And why can the naked eye see it? Under the gentle hush of the night sky, when the world grows quiet enough for ancient light to be heard, the Andromeda Galaxy rises like a distant memory. It is more than a smear of brightness, more than a pale fingerprint on the velvet of the cosmos. It is our nearest galactic neighbor, a great island of stars adrift across 2.5 million light-years. And yet, astonishingly, your unaided eyes can still meet it. This simple fact has always moved me, because it reveals something profound about our place in the universe. Astronomer Carl Sagan once said, "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." And few things capture that truth more beautifully than the moment you look up and see another galaxy with nothing more than your own human sight. To ask why Andromeda appears as a faint blur is to enter a poetic puzzle, a contradiction as gentle as starlight itself. How can a galaxy containing nearly 1 trillion suns look so small, so shy, so easily overlooked? The answer lies partly in distance, partly in the nature of our eyes, and partly in the humility of light traveling across unimaginable space. Light from Andromeda began its journey long before humans carved tools or lit first fires. It has been traveling for millions of years, crossing the dark like a messenger from a forgotten era. And when it reaches us, its glow has been thinned by distance, scattered by storms, blurred by atmosphere. What remains is a soft smudge, a whisper of brilliance, delicate enough that you must relax your gaze to catch it. Neil deGrasse Tyson once remarked, "The universe is under no obligation to make sense to you." And perhaps that is why Andromeda approaches us quietly, revealing itself only to those patient enough to stand in darkness and let their eyes adjust. Yet the faintness of Andromeda is not a failure of its light. It is a testament to scale. The galaxy itself is enormous, stretching more than 220,000 light-years across, twice the width of our Milky Way. But the distance between galaxies is even more immense, so great that even 1 trillion suns blur together like a breath on glass. I often think of this when I look up, how size becomes meaningless in the face of distance, how something unimaginably vast can shrink into a ghostly smear simply because it is far away. And yet, even as a smudge, Andromeda carries weight, emotional weight, scientific weight, historical weight. For ancient humans, Andromeda was a curious cloud, a mist tucked within the constellation of a chained princess. Long before telescopes, long before astronomy became a science, our ancestors noticed it, stared at it, wondered about it. They saw it with the same eyes you carry today, using the same quiet technique that stargazers still use. turning their vision slightly sideways, allowing the more sensitive cells near the edge of the retina to catch the faint glow. It amazes me that eyes shaped by evolution on a small blue world could gather photons that left another galaxy ages ago. There is something poetic and grounding in that, a reminder that the boundary between us and the cosmos is thinner than we think. I imagine a shepherd thousands of years ago, lying on warm stone, staring upward. I imagine a traveler crossing a desert, surprised by a faint cloud that was not a cloud. I imagine a monk on a mountain, finding solace in a pale oval of light that seemed eternal. They did not know its name. They did not know its size. They did not know it held 1 trillion suns. But they felt its presence, just as we do. And later, when Persian astronomer al-Sufi wrote of the little cloud in the year 964, the mystery deepened. Centuries passed. Telescopes improved. Minds expanded. And eventually, Edwin Hubble proved that this faint smudge was not a nebula inside our Milky Way, but an entire galaxy of its own. That discovery changed everything. It expanded the universe overnight. Astrophysicist Vera Rubin once wrote, "We are made of the same star stuff as the galaxies we study." And that truth resonates deeply when we consider Andromeda. Because the photons that reach your eye tonight carry not only information but kinship. Why can the naked eye see Andromeda when it cannot see most galaxies? Partly because it is large, partly because it is bright, but mostly because it is close. In galactic terms, Andromeda is just next door, a neighbor drifting slowly toward us at 110 kilometers per second. One day, billions of years from now, our galaxies will merge. The faint blur will stretch, brighten, distort, and finally bloom into a cosmic dance visible from every corner of the sky. To think that the blur we see tonight is the first chapter of that future story fills me with wonder. As a scientist, I find comfort in how Andromeda links observation to imagination, humility to curiosity. As a storyteller, I find beauty in how it bridges the human heart with the silence of the cosmos. And as a person, I find meaning in the idea that something so far away can feel so personal. Here is the lesson I take from it. The universe is immense, but it is also intimate. Light travels millions of years only to end its journey in your eyes. And that makes you part of the story as surely as the stars themselves. When we pause to look up, when we allow ourselves to feel the distance, the scale, the quiet, something inside us expands. Something that has been small all day becomes spacious. And perhaps that is why ancient humans watched Andromeda, not with fear, but with recognition. They saw in it a reflection of their own longing for meaning, for continuity, for home. The Andromeda Galaxy is not just a scientific object. It is a mirror, a reminder of the simple truth that we belong to the cosmos. And yet, even after all our discoveries, Andromeda still appears as a quiet blur. There is something humbling about that, something tender. It asks nothing of us, and yet it gives us perspective. As I reflect on these things, I find myself returning to a single thought. We do not need to travel to galaxies to touch the universe. The universe comes to us, one photon at a time. Andromeda reaches us gently, as if whispering across the ages, inviting us to look up, to breathe, to remember that wonder is always available. And perhaps that is the real magic. A galaxy so vast we cannot comprehend its size appears as a fragile smear of light, just large enough for the human heart to hold. And now the question lingers softly, waiting for us to follow it deeper into the night. If Andromeda can be seen with the naked eye, then what truly is this galaxy? And what secrets does it carry across the darkness? The first time I stood beneath a silent sky and let my eyes drift toward that faint mist called Andromeda, something in me softened, as if the universe had placed a hand on my shoulder. It did not shine like the bold stars we know, nor did it call attention to itself. Instead, it lingered like a memory, quiet and ancient. And yet within that fragile shimmer lives a truth almost too large for a human mind to hold. The truth that Andromeda is not merely a cloud in the sky, but an entire island universe whose size challenges the boundaries of imagination. Astronomer Carl Sagan once said that understanding the cosmos is a way of understanding ourselves. And never is that more apparent than when we ask a deceptively simple question. How big is Andromeda? It sounds like a matter of measurement, a number on a chart, a fact we can point to. But the moment we look deeper, we discover that the scale is not just scientific, it is spiritual, emotional, humbling. The true diameter of the Andromeda Galaxy is estimated to be around 220,000 light-years. Each light-year is nearly 10 trillion kilometers, a distance so great that even light soaring at the fastest speed permitted by nature requires a full year to cross it. When you stretch that across 220,000 such lengths, the measurement stops feeling like mathematics and begins to feel like music. A long, slow note vibrating through the fabric of existence. The renowned astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson once remarked that the universe is under no obligation to make sense to us. And yet we keep trying. We keep reaching, even though the distances involved tower beyond comprehension. To describe Andromeda's size is to describe something that exceeds language. We can compare it to oceans and continents, to the span of our planet. But all of these collapse into triviality the moment we confront the truth that Andromeda holds nearly 1 trillion stars. That number, whispered slowly, almost becomes a prayer. 1 trillion suns, each a furnace, each a world maker. And yet from Earth we see only a blush of light, a soft oval glow suspended in darkness. To think that our naked eyes can touch that glow at all is a miracle of cosmic geometry. Andromeda is both impossibly distant and strangely intimate. Its photons began their journey 2.5 million years ago, long before any human ancestors sculpted stone tools or painted the walls of caves. But they arrive now, this moment, into you. When we ask why its size is so hard to imagine, the answer lies partly in the limits of the human mind. Our brains evolved to measure footsteps, tree lines, river bends, not the width of galaxies. We are creatures of meters and miles, not light years. And so our thoughts must stretch like elastic, reaching beyond our native scale until they tremble at the edge of understanding. But perhaps the difficulty is also the beauty, because when we stand before something too large to grasp, we are asked to let go, to surrender, to breathe with the universe rather than trying to confine it inside our words. The size of Andromeda becomes not a statistic but a meditation, a moment of stillness where the mind expands the way a pupil widens in the dark. When scientists compare Andromeda to the Milky Way, the contrast reveals another layer of insight. Our home galaxy spans roughly 100,000 to 120,000 light-years, less than half the width of Andromeda. The Milky Way contains perhaps 400 billion stars, while Andromeda may hold nearly 1 trillion. If the Milky Way is a city of stars, Andromeda is a continent. If the Milky Way is a river, Andromeda is an ocean. George Ellery Hale once said that every new stretch of the universe we measure deepens the mystery rather than resolves it. The comparison between these two galaxies is not a rivalry but a revelation. It shows us that our cosmic neighborhood is far from empty, far from simple. The Milky Way and Andromeda are twin dancers, slowly spiraling toward one another, destined to merge into a single galactic being in 4 billion years. As I reflect on these scales, I find myself pulled between two feelings. On one side is awe, the trembling recognition that the universe dwarfs every concern I carry. On the other side is a quiet sense of belonging, because the atoms in my body were forged in the same stellar furnaces that shine within Andromeda. We are small, yes, but we are made of cosmic ingredients, shaped by ancient explosions. We are stardust, studying stardust. There is a lesson hidden in that duality. The universe invites humility, but it also invites connection. It reminds us that distance does not erase kinship. That scale does not diminish meaning. When we confront the immensity of Andromeda, we learn not only about a distant galaxy, but about the architecture of our own minds. We learn that wonder is a form of courage, and curiosity a form of devotion. Sometimes I imagine what it would feel like to drift slowly between the Milky Way and Andromeda, the darkness around me pulsing with scattered stars. The galaxies would appear as two vast spirals, their arms like gentle waves frozen in time. Perhaps then the size of Andromeda would feel more real, more physical. But perhaps not. Perhaps its true lesson is that some things are meant to be felt rather than measured. Astrophysicist Vera Rubin once remarked that the cosmos is not interested in the hopes and fears of humans, yet it provides the raw material for meaning if we choose to look. And so we look, again and again. Not because the universe asks for our attention, but because something in us longs to touch the infinite. As you listen to this, perhaps lying down, perhaps letting your breath slow as stars gather quietly in your imagination, let Andromeda become a mirror, a reminder that the world is wider than our fears, deeper than our worries. Let its size offer perspective, not pressure. Let it remind you that the universe is ancient but still unfolding. That knowledge is vast but still welcoming. And that you are a participant in this grand expanse simply because you are here, listening. And as the thought settles like cosmic dust in a sunbeam, a final question rises softly. If Andromeda is this immense, then what else in the universe awaits our discovery? What new horizons lie just beyond the edge of sight? And in the quiet between your breaths, can you feel the ancient light still traveling toward you? Light from Andromeda begins its journey in a silence older than our species. It leaves the hearts of distant suns, sails through dust fields, threads between newborn stars, and drifts across a gulf so immense that human language can barely wrap itself around it. By the time those photons touch our eyes, they have traveled for 2.5 million years. And when we look up, we are not seeing Andromeda as it is, but as it once was, illuminated by a past that has only now arrived. Astronomer Carl Sagan once said, "We see the universe not as it is, but as it was." And in the case of Andromeda, those words become literal, a quiet truth wrapped in the shimmer of ancient light. Light moves with perfect patience, racing at 300,000 kilometers per second, yet still requiring ages to cross the void between the Milky Way and Andromeda. That immense journey means that tonight, if you step outside and lift your gaze, the glow you see is a fossil, a preserved memory of a night sky that existed long before early humans carved the first tools. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson captured this wonder when he said, "To look at the night sky is to look across time." And Andromeda pushes that truth to its edge, reminding us how deeply time and distance are stitched into every star we perceive. The reason we look into the past is simple physics. Light does not teleport. It travels, step by step, photon by photon. Everything we see in the cosmos is delayed. Everything arrives late. The moon is a second old. The sun, 8 minutes. The nearest stars, years. And Andromeda, millions of years removed from our present moment. Yet this delay is not a flaw. It is a gift. Because light doesn't simply travel, it remembers. Locked within each photon is information. The temperature of a star, the elements within it, its motion. When that light reaches us, we are reading a message written before humanity existed. In this way, light becomes both messenger and historian. This is how astronomers measure Andromeda's approach. Its light is slightly compressed, shifted toward the blue. A blue shift that whispers one of the universe's most dramatic truths. Andromeda is coming closer, falling toward us in a slow cosmic embrace that will reshape both galaxies billions of years from now. The famous comparison of Milky Way versus Andromeda becomes not a rivalry, but an unfolding story. Two spirals drifting into one another's gravity. Two ancient islands of stars destined to merge into a single new galaxy. Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb once remarked, "When you observe the universe, you are observing history." And nowhere is that more profound than when we study Andromeda, a galaxy whose photons reach our world like letters mailed long before the human story began. As the light travels, it passes through stellar nurseries, supernova remnants, and dark matter halos. Each region alters the light slightly, bending it, stretching it, or filtering its colors. By the time the light arrives, it contains a coded record of everything it has encountered. Astronomers decode these patterns, extracting temperature profiles, chemical fingerprints, stellar velocities. The entire galaxy becomes readable, not by sight alone, but by the stories carried in the faintest beams of starlight. When I study these signals, I often imagine them drifting slowly across time, like messages in bottles set adrift on an endless ocean. These photons, left before modern humans existed, survived the rise of continents, the extinction of species, the birth of civilization, the inventions of telescopes and mathematics. They survive everything because the universe carries them faithfully. Reflecting on this, I realize that light teaches us patience. It reminds us that understanding takes time, that the universe reveals itself slowly. The lesson I take from Andromeda is simple, but deep. Whatever we seek to understand, whether galaxies or our own lives, must be approached with quiet attention. Just as light travels across ages, knowledge unfolds across moments of curiosity, reflection, and stillness. Perhaps that is why the Andromeda light feels so calming, especially late at night. It is ancient, but gentle, powerful, yet soft as a memory. When we gaze at it, we are held between two immensities: the vast distance light has traveled, and the quiet moment in which we receive it. It is difficult to stand beneath such a sky and not feel a sense of peace. Astrophysicist Vera Rubin once said, "The universe is under no obligation to make sense to us." And yet, beneath Andromeda's pale shimmer, it somehow does. Because in that faint glow, we see proof that the universe connects past and present, dust and consciousness, galaxies and human hearts. Milky Way versus Andromeda is not a comparison of who is larger, brighter, or stronger. It is a reminder that our home galaxy is part of a larger story, a story written in the slow, drifting, luminous threads of time. And so, when you next look at the night sky, breathe a little slower, let your thoughts drift like starlight, and remember this: the light touching your eyes began its journey long before your ancestors walked the earth. It crossed a darkness so wide that even imagination falters. Yet it arrived, softly, gently, patiently, carrying a story only you can receive in that moment. A reminder that even across millions of years, the universe still reaches out to us. One photon at a time, when we lift our eyes to the quiet sky and find that faint oval glow of Andromeda, we are not simply seeing a distant object. We are witnessing the final seconds of a journey that began more than 2 million years ago. Each photon that touches our retinas tonight set out long before humanity learned its first word, long before fire, long before memory. And in that fragile shimmer, our eyes collect only the faintest whisper of a galaxy larger than our own. A galaxy that seems to hide its grandeur behind a veil of limitation that belongs not to the cosmos, but to us. Astronomers often say that the night sky is a mirror, reflecting not only what is above us, but what our senses allow us to perceive. The human eye is remarkable. yet imperfect. Exquisitely tuned for the bright surfaces of Earth, but not for the ancient light raining down from galaxies. That is why when we look directly at Andromeda, it seems to dim, to slip away like something shy, something that prefers to be seen only out of the corner of our vision. This is where averted vision becomes a quiet magic. By looking slightly away from the galaxy, we allow the more sensitive cells of the eye to awaken, and suddenly Andromeda breathes into view. It is as if the universe asks us not to stare, but to listen. The great astronomer John Dobson once whispered, "The universe is not stranger than you imagine. It is stranger than you can imagine." And nowhere is this truer than in the size of Andromeda itself. For if our eyes were just a little more sensitive, if the faintest light did not wash out against the noise of our own biology, Andromeda would stretch across the sky wider than the moon. Not a small smudge, but a grand spiral covering several times the lunar diameter. This is the secret it holds. A secret hidden in plain sight. And yet, knowing this raises another question. How do we measure something so large and so far from us, when our eyes alone cannot convey its true scale? Astronomers have built ladders of light, tools that allow us to turn faint glimmers into distances. One of the first was the Cepheid variable star, discovered by Henrietta Leavitt, whose work laid the foundation for modern cosmology. She found that the pulsations of these stars reveal their true brightness. And once we know how bright a star truly is, its apparent faintness becomes a ruler stretching across millions of light years. Edwin Hubble used these pulsations to measure the distance to Andromeda, revealing in a single stroke that our Milky Way was not the entire universe. As Hubble said, equipped with his 5 senses, man explores the universe around him and calls the adventure science. But Cepheids are only the beginning. For greater distances, astronomers turn to the powerful beacons of type Ia supernovae. These explosions shine with near-uniform brightness, allowing us to measure even farther galaxies with astonishing precision. And in Andromeda, these supernovae have allowed us to refine its distance, its scale, and its fate. That fate becomes clearer when we examine the blue shift in its light, a phenomenon meaning that Andromeda is moving toward us. Nearly all galaxies in the universe are receding, carried outward by cosmic expansion. Yet Andromeda approaches, drawn toward us by a gravitational bond older than the Earth itself. Neil deGrasse Tyson once remarked, "We are part of this universe. We are in this universe." But perhaps more important than both is the universe is in us. And as we watch Andromeda drift closer, we are reminded that galaxies too are connected, destined for union, destined for transformation. This is where the keyword galaxy collision future becomes not just an idea, but an unfolding destiny. In 4 billion years, Andromeda and the Milky Way will meet. Not in a catastrophic crash, but in a slow, elegant dance of gravity. Stars will slide past one another with enormous empty space between them. Spiral arms will stretch like taffy, and the sky of whatever beings exist then will blossom with arcs of starlight. Eventually, the 2 galaxies will merge into one giant elliptical system, a new home for trillions of stars, As I reflect on all this, I find a lesson quietly woven through the science. When we struggle to see Andromeda with our naked eyes, when we strain to make out that faint smudge across the dark, we are reminded that truth often arrives softly, not in brilliance, but in subtlety. Our senses are limited, but our curiosity is not. Our eyes may fail, but our understanding grows. And as we reach for these distant lights, we discover that the universe is more than a place of measurement. It is a place of meaning. Even the way Andromeda asks us to look at it, through averted vision, is itself a metaphor. Some truths are too faint to be seen directly. But if we soften our gaze, if we allow wonder to guide us, they reveal themselves. And so, when you stand beneath the night sky and lift your eyes to that ancient glow, remember that you are not merely observing a far-off galaxy. You are sharing a moment with the universe. Light older than humanity finds you, touches you, becomes part of your story. And in that exchange, in that gentle meeting of eye and starlight, you glimpse not only Andromeda's immensity, but your own. In the quiet drift of the cosmos, where thought moves like dust through starlight, there is a question that feels both simple and impossibly large. How many stars sleep inside the vast body of the Andromeda Galaxy? And how do we know? Astronomers whisper that Andromeda holds close to 1 trillion suns, a number so immense that the mind hesitates before it. Carl Sagan once said, "Somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known." And that feeling rests inside this estimate, a quiet astonishment at what light can reveal. No one can count stars one by one. Even the most patient observer would be overwhelmed across centuries. Instead, astronomers listen to the total glow, the combined shimmer of countless suns blending into a single river of luminosity. Light becomes a census, a way for us to weigh the brilliance of a galaxy and infer how many suns must exist to create such a glow. Edwin Hubble once reminded us, "The universe is not only stranger than we imagine, it is stranger than we can imagine." And nowhere is this more evident than in the techniques used to measure the unmeasurable. When we compare Andromeda to the Milky Way, the contrast becomes a gentle lesson in cosmic scale. Our own galaxy holds around 400 billion stars, vast in every sense, but still only half the population of Andromeda. Andromeda's diameter stretches to nearly 220,000 light-years, a great spinning lantern twice the breadth of the Milky Way. As Neil deGrasse Tyson often says, we are part of a universe that is alive and aware of itself through us. And this awareness grows as we see how our home compares to its neighbor. The structures of the two galaxies differ as well. The Milky Way is a barred spiral, a galaxy with a luminous bridge of stars crossing its heart. Andromeda is an unbarred spiral, more classical, its central bulge smooth and rounded. This difference shapes the flow of stars, the rhythm of gas, the quiet architecture of spiral arms unfurling through space. If we drift closer toward their cores, another contrast emerges. At the center of the Milky Way lies Sagittarius A*, a black hole with the mass of 4 million suns. Andromeda's central black hole is a deeper well, nearly 100 million solar masses. It is a sleeping giant, quiet now, but still the gravitational anchor around which the inner galaxy swirls. In the words of physicist Kip Thorne, black holes are the most perfect objects in the universe, and Andromeda's is a testament to that perfection. These differences do not make one galaxy superior, but they reveal how diverse the members of the local group galaxies truly are. Our cosmic neighborhood is not a uniform cluster, but a living family, each galaxy carrying its own history, its own scars, its own luminous legacy. When I think of Andromeda's trillion stars, I find myself imagining them as distant lanterns floating down a river older than memory. Each one is a furnace, a birthplace of elements, a small laboratory where the laws of nature continue their ancient story. Perhaps this is why the estimate feels so moving. Not because of the number itself, but because each star is a universe of its own. The method of counting them through their combined light is a quiet metaphor for life. We cannot understand every detail, every spark, every individual flame, but we can sense the whole, the total glow, the collective radiance of what exists together. As we move from stars to structure, from brightness to weight, from one galaxy to another, a natural reflection appears. What lesson does Andromeda offer us? I often wonder. Perhaps it teaches humility, reminding us that our world, for all its beauty, is one small note in a cosmic symphony. Perhaps it teaches awe, inviting us to find serenity in the vastness rather than fear. Or perhaps it teaches patience, for galaxies move slowly, their stories written in a language of millions of years. And yet, their lessons reach us gently, carried on beams of ancient light that fall into our eyes as softly as snow. When we place the Milky Way beside Andromeda, we are not comparing rivals, but companions. Two great spirals drifting through the quiet sea of the local group, destined one day to meet and merge. Their shapes will dissolve, their stars intermix, their black holes spiral inward like dancers in a slow eternal waltz. In that future galaxy, the stars of Andromeda and the stars of the Milky Way will shine side by side. There will be no boundary, no separation. Only one great luminous body born from two. And so, as I reflect on Andromeda's trillion stars, I find myself returning to a quiet truth. We count stars not to reduce them to numbers, but to understand our place among them. We compare galaxies not to choose favorites, but to see the diversity of creation. We study their light not only for science, but for meaning. For in each photon that reaches us, there is a whisper, a reminder, a soft invitation to look up. And when we do, we rediscover that the universe is wide, ancient, and quietly welcoming. Andromeda is not just a galaxy. It is a lantern in the night, guiding our imagination across millions of years. And somewhere inside its trillion stars, there is room for our wonder. Under the drifting hush of a cosmic night, Andromeda unfolds like a great lantern of ancient memory. A galaxy whose very structure feels less like an object of science and more like a living organism breathing across millions of years. Its bulge gleams at the center. A dense sphere of old stars pressed together like embers that have burned for ages. Glowing quietly, yet carrying the gravity that guides everything around it. Edwin Hubble once whispered, "The history of astronomy is a history of receding horizons." And standing beneath Andromeda, that truth feels almost literal. The spiral arms sweep outward, not as fixed bands, but as slow waves of density. Patterns that drift like tides across the galactic sea. According to density wave theory, the arms are not permanent structures but rather regions where stars bunch up, much like traffic slowing along a winding road. Stars move in and out of these waves, yet the pattern holds, enduring for billions of years. Carl Sagan once said, "We are star stuff contemplating the stars." And in these arms, where new suns ignite and old ones fade, that sentiment becomes a shimmering truth. Along the arms lie dust lanes, dark rivers threading through the light, shaping the galaxy's appearance with gentle shadow. They appear almost like brushstrokes, lines of mystery that dim the starlight while hiding the seeds of future suns. These lanes are not merely obstacles, they are reservoirs, places where hydrogen cools and gathers, forming molecular clouds that mark the beginning of star-forming regions. In these clouds, gravity waits patiently, folding the gas inward, letting heat rise. And then, with silent brilliance, a star is born. Andromeda also carries rings, great circular waves etched into its disk, as if a stone had been dropped into a galactic pond ages ago. Astronomers believe these rings are the echoes of ancient collisions, scars of long-vanished galaxies that once brushed against Andromeda's edges. Each ring is a memory, a fossil made of starlight, a reminder that galaxies evolve not in isolation but through dance and impact. Dust and gas together form the quiet lungs of Andromeda, inhaling through collapse, exhaling through starlight. Without them, the galaxy would fall into silence, unable to form new stars, unable to breathe. Hydrogen becomes the essential note in this cosmic symphony, the simplest element giving birth to the most radiant outcomes. In the words of Neil deGrasse Tyson, "We are part of this universe. We are in this universe. But more important than that, the universe is in us." Every star that blooms inside Andromeda becomes a distant relative, a reflection of the elemental story written in our own bones. As we drift deeper into its structure, it becomes clear that no single part of Andromeda moves alone. Everything is linked. Everything is woven into a slow cosmic rhythm. The bulge anchors. The arms sweep. The dust gathers. The gas ignites. The rings echo. And beneath it all lies a gravitational harmony, the unseen pulse that shapes the entire galaxy. Even the question, how far is Andromeda, becomes more than a measurement. It becomes a meditation, a reminder that the light touching our eyes tonight began its journey over 2 million years ago. We stand at the edge of an ocean of time, watching the reflection of a moment we never lived. And somehow, That distance makes the galaxy feel closer. In contemplating these structures, I find myself humbled by the patience of the cosmos, its slow evolution, its quiet persistence. We rush through our days, measuring our lives in hours and years. Andromeda measures its life in the rise and fall of star-forming epochs, in the long arc of gravitational encounters. It reminds me that growth rarely follows a straight line, that beauty is often shaped by collision and shadow, and that even in darkness, creation continues. Perhaps that is the lesson hidden in its spiral arms, that movement can be both chaotic and graceful, that waves of change do not erase us but carry us forward. Perhaps the dust lanes remind us that obscurity is not the end, but the beginning of new light. Perhaps the rings tell us that we too bear the marks of ancient impacts, yet continue to expand. As I drift with this galaxy in thought, I feel the same calm that stargazers have felt for centuries. A sense that the universe does not hurry, and perhaps neither should we. Andromeda's structure becomes a meditation on existence, a cosmic mirror showing us that complexity can still be peaceful, that immensity can still be intimate. To know its bulge, its arms, its dust, its rings, its breath of star-forming clouds, is to feel the quiet truth that nothing in the universe stands alone. Everything is connected. Everything is evolving. Everything is part of a greater unfolding. So as we float here in this soft narrative of starlight, let the rhythm of Andromeda remind you of your own rhythm. Let its slow spirals ease your thoughts. Let its ancient dust settle softly in your imagination. And let its patient light guide you gently into the next chapter of our journey. In the silent heart of the cosmos, where light drifts like ancient incense rising through an endless cathedral of stars, the galaxy Andromeda carries a secret that hums beneath its luminous arms. A secret so dense, so hidden, that even starlight bends in reverence around it. This is its supermassive black hole, a gravitational monarch weighing nearly 100 million suns. And as we drift toward its story, we begin to understand not only how such colossal gravity is known, but how surprisingly gentle its voice has become across the ages. Astronomers measure this dark giant not by sight, for no human eye can gaze into an event horizon, but by tracing the frantic dance of the stars that whirl around it. Like sparks circling a buried forge, these stars move at blistering speeds, revealing the mass that holds them captive. As Reinhard Genzel once said, "The stars are the handwriting of gravity, and gravity never lies." In Andromeda, that handwriting is bold, sweeping, unmistakable. Their orbits confirm a mass far beyond the black hole at the center of our Milky Way, Sagittarius A*, which weighs a modest 4 million solar masses in comparison. Carl Sagan once whispered, "Somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known." And in Andromeda, that something is the colossal calm of a black hole too large to hide. And yet, for all its mass, Andromeda's central black hole is strangely quiet. It does not blaze with the brilliance of a quasar, does not howl with jets of radiation tearing through the dark. Instead, it murmurs, barely feeding, its hunger reduced to a slow, drifting breath. Why so peaceful, when giants of its size often roar? The answer lies in the galaxy's past, in the long ebb and flow of gas that once fed its central furnace. In its youth, Andromeda may have shone with quasar brilliance, devouring material with fevered intensity. But now, most of the easy fuel is gone, consumed, expelled, or scattered by the galaxy's restless history. What remains spirals inward slowly, like old memories returning in fragments. Neil deGrasse Tyson once noted, "Black holes are where God divided by zero." But even in that infinite arithmetic, the results can be surprisingly quiet. To understand this stillness, one must look beyond the center, out into the territory where Andromeda's story becomes even more intricate. Scattered around its shining disk are its companions, the satellite galaxies, M32 and M110. M32 is a compact elliptical, a jewel crushed by tidal forces, perhaps once far larger before Andromeda stripped it down to its luminous core. M110, more diffuse, is a soft cloud of aging stars, trailing faint whispers of material that betray a turbulent past. Together they orbit like younger siblings, caught in the pull of a vast elder. But Andromeda's family extends far beyond these bright satellites. For surrounding the galaxy like a ghostly shroud are dozens of dwarf galaxies, some so faint they nearly dissolve into the night. Many have already met their fate, torn apart by Andromeda's gravity, their stars stretched into tidal streams that arc across its halo. These streams are cosmic fossils, remnants of ancient mergers. They drift like pale scars, telling the story of every galaxy Andromeda has consumed, every collision, every slow, gravitational feast. As astrophysicist Rosemary Wise observed, "The halo remembers what the disk forgets." Andromeda's halo remembers everything. Every dwarf galaxy torn apart, every orbit that decayed, every stellar river spilled across the dark. Each stream curves like a sentence in the long biography of the galaxy, revealing how it grew so massive, how its black hole became a giant, how its calm today was forged by storms long past. As I study these structures, drifting through high-resolution maps and simulations, I often feel a quiet humility rise within me. We measure the distance to Andromeda. We ask, how far is Andromeda? And we compute 2.5 million light-years. But no number captures the patience of a galaxy consuming its companions over billions of years. No figure conveys the poetry of stars unraveled into silver threads across the void. In these tidal streams, I see a truth about cosmic evolution, and a truth about ourselves. Galaxies grow by encounters, by collisions, by the gentle and violent shaping of time. And perhaps, so do we. We too are made from what we have absorbed, from every experience that has pulled at our orbit, every memory that stretched us into new forms. The universe writes its history in stars, but we write ours in choices. The great black hole of Andromeda teaches a quieter lesson. That immense power need not always be loud. That a giant may rest. That calm can follow chaos. And its satellite galaxies teach a companion truth. That nothing in the universe stands alone. That every system is shaped by what surrounds it. Tonight, as we drift through this cosmic meditation, we learn not only how astronomers weigh invisible giants, or how tidal streams map ancient violence. We learn how patient the universe is, how bound we all are to forces beyond our sight. And somewhere in the gentle glow between the stars, we remember that Andromeda is moving toward us. Slowly, inevitably, carrying its quiet black hole, its broken satellites, its long rivers of memory. And as it comes, we are invited to look up, to breathe, to feel the vastness that holds us. For if the universe can shape giants with silence and sculpt galaxies with time, perhaps it can teach us to move more gently through our own small corner of existence. In the quiet river of the local group, the galaxy we call Andromeda drifts with a presence both ancient and immediate, a neighbor shimmering just beyond the edges of human perception, a light that has traveled for more than 2 million years, only to rest softly upon our eyes tonight. For many people, it remains a faint cloud, a blur suspended in a velvet sky. But for those who pause and truly look, Andromeda becomes something deeper. A reminder that the universe is not a distant abstraction, but a living structure of relationships held together by gravity and time. Astronomers often whisper that in our cosmic neighborhood, Andromeda is the silent giant, the heaviest anchor within the local group, and the quiet sculptor of orbits and destinies. Neil deGrasse Tyson once said that when we gaze into the night sky, we are not looking up, but looking back. And nowhere is this truer than with Andromeda. Its gravity reaches across millions of light years, touching the Milky Way, touching Triangulum, touching the faint dwarf galaxies scattered around like sparks frozen in an ancient dance. The local group itself spans roughly 10 million light-years, a floating archipelago within the greater sea of the cosmic web. And inside this archipelago, Andromeda is the continent rising above the waves. When we picture the local group, it is tempting to imagine emptiness. But in truth, it is a sanctuary of structure, a place where gravitational ties define family. The Milky Way and Andromeda are the twin elders, each holding hundreds of billions of stars. And Triangulum, the graceful M33, moves like a younger sibling caught between their influence. Gravity binds them, shapes them, draws them inevitably toward one another, and one day toward merger. The astrophysicist Sandra Faber once reflected that galaxies are not islands, but societies, constantly interacting, constantly reshaping each other. I feel that truth when contemplating the local group, because Andromeda does not simply exist within it, it defines it. Yet long before astronomers could map its gravity or trace its halo, long before the word galaxy even existed, humanity looked up and saw only a ghost of light. In the year 964, the Persian astronomer al-Sufi recorded this ghost as the little cloud, a soft patch in the constellation Andromeda. He did not know what it was, yet he recognized it as something distinct, something worth remembering. His words became the first written testament of a galaxy beyond our own, though he could not have imagined the full meaning of what he saw. For nearly 1,000 years, that little cloud remained an enigma, a nebula, an object neither explained nor understood. Generations passed. Civilizations rose and fell, and still people looked up and saw the same faint blur. The belief that Andromeda was simply a cloud inside the Milky Way lasted well into the 20th century. A misconception held not out of ignorance, but out of the limits of our tools. Carl Sagan once said that science is a way of teaching us not to fool ourselves. And the story of Andromeda shows exactly how patient that lesson must sometimes be. When Edwin Hubble aimed the Hooker telescope at Andromeda, he was not simply taking a photograph. He was testing the edges of human understanding. He found Cepheid variables, stars that pulsed with a rhythm that revealed their distance. And that distance was far too great for them to belong to the Milky Way. In that moment, humanity learned that the universe was larger than anyone had dared to believe. Hubble later wrote, "The history of astronomy is a history of receding horizons." Andromeda was one such horizon, and it receded so far it remade the map of reality. As I reflect on this part of the story, I am struck by how often progress begins with humility. How curiosity turns into clarity only when we allow ourselves to question what we think we know. We believed the universe was small, and then Andromeda told us otherwise. We believed the Milky Way was everything, and then Andromeda offered proof that we were looking at only one galaxy among countless billions. Today, when we talk about Andromeda's role in the local group, we speak with the confidence of scientists who have measured its mass, traced its halo, mapped its satellites. But the emotional truth remains unchanged. Andromeda is a reminder of our limits and of our ability to transcend them. The gravitational relationship between Andromeda and the Milky Way is both a bond and a prophecy, a slow-motion dance drawn out across billions of years. They move toward each other at more than 100 kilometers per second. Yet the journey is so long that nothing about our night sky will change in our lifetime. Triangulum circles the edges of this relationship, pulled by each giant, sometimes drifting closer, sometimes farther. It is as though the local group breathes, expanding and contracting in gravity's rhythm. Astronomer Vera Rubin, whose work uncovered the existence of dark matter, once said that the cosmos is not only queerer than we suppose, but queerer than we can suppose. I feel that truth when contemplating Andromeda's halo, a sphere of invisible matter stretching more than 1,000,000 light-years, overlapping the Milky Way long before the galaxies themselves touch. Even now, their halos mingle, two shadows meeting in the dark. Sometimes I imagine what it was like for the first humans to see Andromeda, not through telescopes, not as spiral arms or a vast stellar disk, but simply as a whisper of light. Andromeda, visible to naked eye, a fragile gift from a faraway world. Those early observers had no way of knowing that the faint blur they saw was a galaxy larger than their own, a realm of 1,000,000,000,000 stars, a place where suns rose and fell before humanity even existed. Yet somehow they preserved the knowledge, passing the observation across centuries until science finally had the means to decode it. There is a quiet lesson in that continuity. A reminder that progress is not the work of a single lifetime, but a chain of curiosity stretching back through history. Without Al-Sufi, without Marius, without Herschel, without Hubble, the Andromeda we know today would still be a mystery. And without the unnamed watchers of the ancient world, the faint cloud might have been forgotten altogether. As I drift through these thoughts, I find myself returning to the idea of relationships, the way galaxies hold each other, the way ideas hold each other, the way we as humans hold stories across generations. The local group is not merely a structure, it is a testament to cosmic connection. Andromeda shapes the group not by force, but by presence, by mass, by the slow inevitability of gravity pulling threads together. When I stand beneath a dark sky, feeling the soft hum of the universe settle into my breath, I am reminded that the beauty of astronomy lies not only in discovery, but in perspective. Andromeda is enormous, yet it appears as a whisper. The local group spans millions of light years, yet it fits within a single thought. History stretches across centuries, yet we perceive it in a single glance at the sky. My personal reflection is gentle, but firm. Andromeda teaches us that small things can contain vast truths, that a faint cloud can be a realm of galaxies. That misunderstanding can be the first step toward revelation. It reminds me that the universe rewards patience, humility, and the courage to question our assumptions. As I close this meditation, I am left with one enduring image: the light of Andromeda falling onto Earth. Quiet, ancient, unbroken. A message carried across the void, telling us that we are part of something larger, something connected, something still unfolding. And in that unfolding, perhaps we will continue learning to see clearly, just as Hubble did, just as Al-Sufi did, just as the first humans did when they lifted their eyes to the night sky and wondered. Under the hush of a drifting cosmos, the Andromeda Galaxy becomes not just a distant neighbor, but a living story written in every wavelength of light. Modern telescopes have given us new eyes, and through them, Andromeda is no longer a faint blur hovering at the edge of human vision, but a vast portrait of structure and motion, of ancient stars and newborn suns. As Carl Sagan once said, "Somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known," and few objects in the sky embody that promise more profoundly than Andromeda. When the Hubble Space Telescope turned its gaze toward this spiral giant, it revealed a landscape so crowded with stars that even silence seemed to deepen around it. The images showed a galaxy alive with delicate dust lanes, sprawling arms, and a golden core where stars packed together like embers of an ancient fire. Hubble resolved individual suns as if uncovering the faces of beings who had waited millions of years to be seen. And in those shimmering fields, astronomers discovered a truth that felt almost poetic: that the closer we look, the more infinite the universe becomes. Neil deGrasse Tyson once reflected, "The universe is under no obligation to make sense to you." Yet Hubble's vision makes it feel as though the cosmos is whispering its secrets one photon at a time. Beyond visible light, modern astronomy uses the full spectrum as a painter uses a full palette. Infrared reveals Andromeda's hidden warmth, showing clouds of dust that glow softly like sleeping giants, regions where stars are waiting to be born. These infrared maps uncover rings and arcs carved by ancient gravitational encounters. The galaxy's memory written into its own structure. Ultraviolet light, sharp and young, exposes clusters of newborn stars, blue and brilliant, blazing for only a brief cosmic moment. It is the color of beginnings, of raw creation, of the universe learning to breathe again. X-ray telescopes offer a different vision, one born from violence and extremes, revealing supernova remnants, collapsed stars, and the faint glow of matter spiraling toward Andromeda's supermassive black hole. Though silent to human ears, these X-ray signatures speak of powerful events shaping the galaxy's future. Radio telescopes then trace the flow of hydrogen gas, mapping currents that swirl far beyond the visible disk. In these long wavelengths, Andromeda appears immense, its halo stretching across 1,000,000 light-years. A reminder that galaxies are not just what we see, but also what we cannot. The radio maps form the scaffolding of gravity itself, showing how dark matter cradles the galaxy like an invisible ocean. All these wavelengths came together most beautifully in one monumental achievement: a 1.5 billion pixel mosaic of Andromeda, stitched from thousands of Hubble exposures. To gaze upon it is to witness a cathedral of stars, each pixel a sun, each sun a story. The mosaic shows Andromeda not as a single object, but as a collection of worlds, a city of light stretching beyond the reach of imagination. As astrophysicist Lisa Caltanega once said, "Every point of light is a promise that somewhere, something might be alive." And standing before the mosaic, one senses this promise glowing from every corner. Yet perhaps the most astonishing revelation from modern observations is not just what Andromeda is, but what it is becoming. Because this galaxy is moving, drifting toward us across the dark sea of space at roughly 110 kilometers per second. Its light is slightly compressed, shifted toward the blue, a cosmic fingerprint of its approach. This blue shift is quiet, gentle, and certain. A message traveling 2.5 million years to tell us that two great spirals are destined to meet. Why does Andromeda fall toward us at all, when the universe itself is expanding? The answer is gravity, the oldest architect of cosmic structure. Though space stretches, pulling distant galaxies apart, the Milky Way and Andromeda lie close enough that their mutual pull overpowers this expansion. Like two dancers slowly spiraling inward, they move along a trajectory set billions of years ago. Einstein once wrote, "Gravity is not a force, but the shape of space." And indeed, the shape of space between our galaxies has been bending toward union long before humans existed. To imagine this approach is to imagine a future sky glowing with new patterns. Tidal streams scrawled across the night. Stars from another galaxy drifting like migrating lanterns. Yet this future is neither violent nor tragic, for stars are too far apart to collide. Instead, the galaxies will merge gracefully, forming a new cosmic structure that some astronomers call Milkomeda. long after Earth itself has changed beyond recognition. Reflecting on all this, I find myself returning to a simple truth. The more deeply we look at the universe, the more it teaches us about our own smallness, and yet our own significance. Observing Andromeda through modern telescopes feels like watching time unfold, seeing the past, the present, and the future braided into a single luminous thread. It reminds me that distance is not an obstacle, but a bridge. That light is not merely illumination, but memory. And that galaxies are not cold, remote islands, but mirrors showing us who we are in the grand story of existence. The lesson I take from Andromeda is quiet and deeply human. That wonder is a form of gravity too. It pulls us toward understanding, toward curiosity, toward the realization that the universe is not something outside us, but something we are made of. Every atom in our bodies was born in the kinds of stars that fill Andromeda. So when we look at that distant spiral, we are seeing a kind of ancestral home. And in this frame, the keyword universe scale explained becomes more than a phrase. It becomes an invitation to slow down, to breathe, to let the immensity of the cosmos soften the noise of daily life. The universe is vast, but we are part of it, and that belonging is a comfort deeper than any distance. So as we let our thoughts drift like satellites through this calm, star-filled space, we return to the telescope's gift. Andromeda is no longer a mystery hidden in night, but a companion, a teacher, a reminder that light travels far, and yet always finds its way. In the quiet tide of cosmic time, there is a moment we can already feel approaching. A slow, inevitable meeting between the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy. Astronomers often speak of this future gently, as if describing the drift of two lanterns across a vast dark lake. And yet within that softness lies an event of staggering scale, a transformation written into the structure of the universe itself. As Carl Sagan once whispered, "The cosmos is also within us." And nowhere is that more true than in the story of our galaxy's future. When these two spirals finally touch, light years of stars will begin to sway, like fields of tall grass moved by a distant wind. Gravity will stretch their arms, bending them into tidal streams that unfurl across space like silver rivers. And yet, despite the drama, no storm of colliding suns will appear. The stars will pass through one another with the calm of spirits crossing paths. For the distance between them is so immense that each sun is like a grain of dust drifting through a cathedral of empty night. As Neil deGrasse Tyson once said, "Space is big, really big." And it is that very bigness that protects the stars from destruction. This seeming paradox invites a deeper wonder. How can two galaxies collide while their stars almost never touch? The answer lies in scale, in the truth that galaxies are mostly silence, mostly the absence between brightness. When their disks begin to overlap, it is not matter crashing into matter, but gravity rewriting the choreography of billions of suns. Their shapes will distort, their arms will ripple, and new channels of star-forming gas will ignite into brilliant starbursts. Whole regions lighting up like newborn constellations, celebrating their arrival. In those bright nurseries, clouds of hydrogen will collide more easily than stars ever could, compressing into glowing clusters of blue-white suns. The galaxies will not end in violence, but in creation. There is a deep poetry in that. The reminder that even in cosmic upheaval, the universe leans toward renewal. Across billions of years, the Milky Way's familiar shape will begin to fade. The Sun itself, carrying Earth, if we are still here, will drift outward into a new orbit carved by the merging gravitational fields. It may rise beneath alien skies, where arcs of shattered starlight stretch across the heavens. The patterns we name today, Orion, Cassiopeia, the Big Dipper, will dissolve into new forms, forming constellations no human tongue has spoken yet. In the heart of each galaxy, two supermassive black holes wait with ancient patience. The Milky Way's Sagittarius A*, quiet but immense, and Andromeda's far larger giant, nearly 100 million solar masses, will begin a long inward spiral, circling each other like two dark suns bound in a cosmic waltz. As their orbit shrinks, space itself will tremble, sending gravitational waves rippling outward, the way a single pebble sends circles across a still pond. Einstein once wrote, "The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion." And in their dance, those black holes seem to embody that truth. They will merge into a single larger singularity, a new heart for the galaxy to be. Their union will mark the moment the two spirals finally become one. A single shining island of stars settling into the smooth, rounded shape of a giant elliptical galaxy. Elegant, quiet, immense. Some astronomers call this future galaxy Milkomeda, others Andrilky Way. But names are small beside the grandeur of what will exist. A structure far larger than either of its parents, glowing with the blended histories of both. Its elliptical form will lack the spiral arms we know, instead carrying a smooth halo of old stars, the remnants of a long cosmic journey. One of the most profound aspects of this future is the simple fact that it happens at all. The universe is expanding, stretching every galaxy away from every other. Yet here, in our small corner, gravity wins. The mutual pull between the Milky Way and Andromeda is strong enough to overcome the metric expansion of space, drawing them together even as the cosmos swells around them. As astrophysicist Avi Loeb once noted, on scales smaller than galaxy groups, gravity remains the master. It is a reminder that the universe is not a single story, but countless stories unfolding at once. Some drifting apart, some falling together. In contemplating this collision, I find myself returning to a quiet personal truth. The universe moves slowly, patiently, with a rhythm so vast that it softens the urgency of our own lives. The meeting of the Milky Way and Andromeda is neither tragedy nor threat, but evolution, the natural flow of structures shaped by time on a scale far beyond human reckoning. There is a lesson in this, one whispered by starlight. Change does not always break us. Sometimes it remakes us. Even in collision, galaxies create light. Even in upheaval, they form new stars, new worlds, new possibilities. As we drift deeper into this reflection, let the mind rest in the scale of it all. The gentle truth behind the phrase, universe scale explained. The reminder that we are threads in something larger, and yet intimately connected to its unfolding. The night sky we know is temporary. The shapes of our constellations are temporary. But the wonder we feel when we look upward, that is eternal. For as long as beings can see the stars, they will marvel at the story written between them. And somewhere, in a far distant age, under a sky filled with patterns we cannot yet imagine, another observer will look up and whisper the same question we asked tonight. How does a universe so vast still find a way to bring two galaxies together? The future sky invites us to imagine a world where the familiar night above our heads transforms into something both breathtaking and otherworldly. A slow celestial bloom unfolding across billions of years, a reminder that the universe is never still. Astronomers often say that to look far is to look deep in time. And nowhere is that more evident than in the coming union between our Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy. As Carl Sagan once murmured, "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." And in this future vision, the cosmos writes its knowledge directly into our sky. At first, Andromeda will grow slowly, almost shyly, expanding its pale halo in a way too subtle for any single lifetime to detect. Yet across generations, the faint oval of light will widen, the arms of this spiral neighbor stretching outward like luminous wings. It will no longer be a delicate blur glimpsed with averted vision, but a full companion rising beside the Milky Way. Neil deGrasse Tyson once reflected that the universe is under no obligation to make sense to you. And in those early epochs, the sky will take on a beauty that defies both logic and scale. As Andromeda grows, overlapping structures will begin to shimmer across the night. Star streams curling like brushstrokes, dust lanes painting soft shadows between fields of light. We will witness the merging of shapes that were once solitary, the graceful collapse of two massive spirals into one immense tapestry. The overlapping of their disks will create a sky so crowded with stars that darkness itself seems to thin. It will be as if the universe gently lifts the veil that once separated our home from our nearest galactic companion. Gradually, the two galaxies will begin their intertwining dance. Not a violent crash, but an elegant drift guided by gravity's quiet hand. As Einstein said, "Look deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better." In this moment, nature reveals its deepest rhythm, a motion so slow and grand that only cosmic patience can perceive it. Tidal tails will bloom outward. Long rivers of stars pulled from their homes and scattered into brilliant arcs. Clouds of gas will collide, igniting new waves of star birth. Blue clusters flaring like sparks across an ancient canvas. Observers under this future sky will witness nebulae larger than any that exist today. Luminous storms of creation unfolding in silence. And then, over billions of years, the spirals will lose their shape, arms dissolving into a single vast glow. The elegant symmetry of a spiral galaxy structure will fade, replaced by the roundness of a giant elliptical form. The sky, once threaded with the Milky Way's river of light, will transform into a dome of shimmering haze. A new galaxy will be born, a blending of two cosmic identities into something larger than either could have been alone. And here, a question begins to rise like a tide. Does size still matter when galaxies merge? Or when stars drift across distances too vast to measure in human thought? Astronomers often remind us that galaxies have no true edges, their boundaries dissolving gently into halos of dark matter and scattered stars. To ask where a galaxy ends is to ask where a cloud ends, or where a river ceases to be a river once it meets the sea. Thirk at this scale becomes relative, fluid, almost poetic. A galaxy may stretch across hundreds of thousands of light years, yet the edges blur like smoke in wind. And so the question shifts. Not how big a galaxy is, but how it holds itself together, how its stars move, how its gravity breathes. Perhaps the true measure is not diameter but relationship, not size but connection. In this sense, the future merger of Milky Way and Andromeda is less about two sizes confronting each other, and more about two histories intertwining. The concept of size loses meaning in the presence of billions of stars flowing freely between once separate homes. Gravity shapes, stirs, blends. The universe is not interested in our need for clean borders. And in the grand scale of cosmic evolution, boundaries are nothing more than suggestions. Brian Greene once noted that, in the fullness of time, everything becomes fleeting. And as I reflect on this cosmic future, I find myself humbled, not by how vast galaxies are, but by how gently they change. Their transformations remind us that the universe is a teacher, patient and quiet, that even grand collisions unfold without haste. When I imagine standing beneath that future sky, watching the slow unfurling of the cosmic union, I am struck by a feeling of deep calm, a sense that change, even unimaginable change, need not be violent, need not be feared. The galaxies do not rush, do not panic. They simply move toward what they are becoming. And perhaps that is the lesson hidden within this future vision. That we, like the stars, are part of processes far larger than ourselves. That growth can be gentle, that transformation can be beautiful, that what we become is shaped not by rigid boundaries but by how we flow through the world. In the end, the merging of the Milky Way and Andromeda is not merely an astronomical event. It is a cosmic meditation, a reminder that even the grandest structures in the universe are impermanent, ever evolving. And that beauty exists not only in what is vast, but in what is fleeting. So as the future sky brightens with the glow of two galaxies becoming one, we are invited to breathe with the universe, to feel its rhythm, to let its scale quiet our worries. And perhaps, as we drift into that cosmic night, we understand a little more of ourselves. For in the merging of galaxies, we see the merging of stories, of past and future, of light and time. And we are reminded that the universe, in all its vastness, still finds ways to whisper gently to those who listen. Between the quiet folds of the universe, there is a moment when the human heart seems to recognize its own reflection in the distant shimmer of a galaxy. Andromeda, perhaps the most intimate stranger we have ever known. When we speak of its meaning for humanity, we are not merely describing a cluster of stars. We are describing a mirror, a presence that softens something inside us. It is curious how knowing our smallness can bring us peace. Yet the philosopher Carl Sagan once whispered, "Who are we, if not a way for the cosmos to know itself?" And suddenly the scale that once dwarfed us becomes a comfort. For it reminds us that we are part of something wider than worry. The tiniest anxieties fade like morning mist when placed beside a galaxy 2 million light-years away. A galaxy whose light began its journey before the first human dream. Standing beneath Andromeda is a strangely private experience. Even though the thing you are looking at is enormous beyond logic. This paradox is what makes the encounter feel both personal and cosmic. It is as if the galaxy leans down to touch a single observer, whispering a lesson older than civilization. The astronomer Vera Rubin once said, "The galaxies are calling to us, and we must listen." And indeed, when you look up, even through the veil of ordinary life, something in that pale glow seems to call your name. It does not demand understanding, only attention, only the willingness to be still long enough for awe to enter. Part of the reason the sight feels intimate is that we are made of the same materials. Every atom in our bodies, every breath, every heartbeat carries the signature of ancient stars. We are stardust. Sagan reminded us, not as poetry but as astrophysical truth. The iron in our blood was forged in supernovae. The calcium in our bones from the deaths of stars older than Earth. Andromeda's light falling softly on our world is made of the same elemental whispers, the same cosmic genealogy. To look at it is to see a distant relative, luminous and ancient, calling across a gulf of empty space. Yet the meaning of Andromeda stretches further than personal emotion. It holds one of the most significant roles in the human journey of cosmic understanding. For thousands of years, it was only a faint smear, a small cloud barely noticed. Then curiosity began to sharpen. Lenses began to improve. And human questions grew bolder. Edwin Hubble looked at that blur in 1924 and discovered something revolutionary. Andromeda was not a nebula within the Milky Way, but a galaxy of its own. An island universe beyond our own shores. With one number, Hubble wrote, the universe had become a universe of galaxies. This moment shifted human consciousness, not by force, but by illumination. Andromeda became proof that the cosmos was vastly larger than anyone imagined. Proof that our Milky Way was not the whole of creation. From a single faint patch of light, the idea of a multi-galaxy universe emerged, and the map of the cosmos expanded like a lung filling with breath. If the Milky Way was a home, Andromeda was the first neighbor we ever recognized. This transformation from smudge to galaxy is more than a historical fact. It is a symbol of how human understanding grows. Slowly, quietly, and then all at once. In many ways, Andromeda is the threshold where humanity first stepped from myth to measurement. from local heavens to universal oceans. It continues to play that role today, reminding us that every discovery, no matter how small, may one day alter our entire sense of scale. Its impact on our understanding of cosmic size cannot be overstated. Before Andromeda was understood as a galaxy, the universe seemed intimate, even cozy. Afterward, the cosmos opened like a vast cathedral, filled with uncountable galaxies, each containing billions of stars. Modern astronomy, especially what we now call astronomy documentary narration in films and education, often begins with this revelation, because it is the moment the human mind truly stepped into the cosmic scale. Andromeda also teaches us something subtle about humility, to know that our entire world, everything we have ever loved or feared, is one point in a galaxy that is itself only a point in a larger universe, is not discouraging. It is liberating. It frees us from the illusion that our problems must carry the weight of galaxies. It reminds us that life is precious precisely because it is small. There is a kind of meditation hidden in astronomy, a quieting of the mind through scale, a return to perspective. When we look at Andromeda, we are looking at light 2 million years old. Light that began its journey long before the first human walked upright. And somehow, knowing this brings reassurance that life flows on a timescale far beyond our troubles, that our anxieties, though real, are not eternal. The astronomer Maria Mitchell once said, "Every formula which expresses a law of nature is a hymn of praise to God." Regardless of what one believes, we understand her meaning. To study galaxies is to participate in awe, to touch something larger than self. My own view is that Andromeda teaches 3 quiet lessons. First, that smallness does not diminish meaning. Second, that distance does not erase connection. Third, that the universe is not a cold emptiness but a living history we are lucky to witness. Watching Andromeda drifting toward us, destined to merge with the Milky Way in 4 billion years, reminds us that nothing in the universe is isolated. Everything moves. Everything interacts. Everything becomes part of something new. This coming collision is not a threat, but a cosmic choreography. A slowdown so vast that no human lifetime can perceive its motion. And when we map the universe today, tracing filaments, clusters, superclusters, we can follow the intellectual thread back to that tiny blur in the constellation Andromeda. The multi-galaxy model of the cosmos began with this neighbor, and from it came the first sketches of the large-scale structure. In that sense, Andromeda is not only a galaxy, it is a doorway. As I reflect on its meaning, I find that Andromeda is much like a teacher who speaks softly, yet alters the entire direction of a student's life. It teaches that understanding grows slowly, that beauty can be faint and still life-changing. That truth can hide inside something we overlook nightly. And perhaps the deepest lesson is this: the universe is not something we stand outside of. It is something we belong to. Andromeda is not merely out there. It is within us, etched into every atom that once belonged to stars older than stars. So, as you listen, As your breath slows, as the night folds softly around you, imagine that pale light suspended above the world. Imagine its stars drifting in an ancient spiral. Imagine the quiet journey of photons crossing time to meet your eyes. And feel for a moment the peaceful weight of smallness, the comfort of belonging to a vast and patient cosmos. Andromeda has always been there, waiting, teaching, reminding us of who we are. And the question now drifts toward you with the gentleness of starlight. What will you seek the next time you look up?